Welcome to DevJams. This is where we talk with developers who are doing interesting, innovative, inspiring things when it comes to image management or video management inside of their projects. My name is Sam Brace, and I am the Senior Director of Customer Education and Community at Cloudinary. And in this episode, we're going to be talking with Li Hau Tan, and we're going to be breaking down a photo album project that he was able to build with Svelte, with Tailwind, and of course, Cloudinary. Joining me for every one of these episodes is Jen Brissman, who is a technical curriculum engineer at Cloudinary, and of course, an amazing co-host for all DevJams episodes. So Jen, welcome to the program.
Hey, Sam. Happy to be here.
So tell me, why are you excited to talk today with Li Hau?
I'm excited to talk with Li Hau to hear about the project that he built. I know we're going to be focusing today a lot on the front end. I know there's a lot of Cloudinary functionality that we haven't discussed in previous DevJams episodes, so I'm excited to maybe learn a thing or two myself.
Wonderful, wonderful. And of course, talking about some of our favorite frameworks like Svelte, and I'm always impressed with all the amazing work that our developers are doing with CSS as well, breaking all that down a little bit. He's been down and doing with Tailwind. There's just a lot that I think we're going to be able to unpackage of this. But of course, we're doing this to help teach developers like you that are watching these episodes to better understand how you can easily start working with images and videos inside of your own projects in a very seamless way. So hopefully you're inspired by the great work that Li Hau has done. With all of that said, let's make sure that you know that all episodes of the DevJams program are available on practically every place you can listen and watch podcasts. It includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. But it also includes our own Cloudinary Academy, which has literally thousands of hours of training material available for you. So make sure to check that out at training.cloudinary.com for as much information you want to know about managing and delivering your images and videos inside of your fantastic projects, such as websites, mobile apps, and other cool things. Also note that all community members, including Li Hau, are active inside of our Cloudinary community. So if you want to have conversations with him and maybe hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of other developers that are using Cloudinary technology and of course, very passionate about image and video, well, go check that out at community.cloudinary.com. And also note that if I scroll down here, you'll see that our community has an active Discord server as well that you can actively join and participate in if you happen to be a Discord fan. With all that said, everything that we are going to be focusing on today's episode, of course, focuses on the great Li Hau Tan. But notice that you can easily find his GitHub by going to the address shown on here on the screen. So that's going to be Tan Hau Hau as his user handle. And then also everything we're going to be focusing on is associated with his Cloudinary photo album repository that happens to be there. So feel free to go to that in your web browser as you listen and watch this episode so you can follow along with all the steps, maybe on your own. With all of that said, let's bring on the fabulous Li Hau Tan to have a conversation with us about his project. So Li Hau, welcome to the program.
Hi Sam. Hi Jen. Nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you as well. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about who you are, why you've gotten into overall development, the work that you've been doing, anything in all of the above.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm so excited and a bit nervous. But my name is Li Hau, and I am from Malaysia. And currently, I'm based in Singapore. How I get into development world, I guess I took the more traditional route where I studied computer engineering at school, and then I graduate from there. I'm not sure whether anyone has this dilemma of like what kind of roles that you want to join, like whether like a backend or front ends or QA or like all sorts of things. And for me personally, I feel that I find certain connections with front end, like the UI itself, building UIs. It's interesting to me because I'm able to just point something to my friends or families and tell them that I've built this UI. So I decided to be a front end engineer, and therefore I've been working on the front end for the past, I would say 7 to 8 years now. At Shopee, which is a e-commerce, like a marketplace based in Southeast Asia, and I'm a front engineer at Shopee.
It's amazing, and I think it's interesting what you're pointing out. Of course, developers, there's many different shapes, different sizes, there's different tracks you can ultimately take. And I love the fact that you were able to see that you were more passionate about the front end than necessarily the back end in this case. And it doesn't mean that you can't touch the back end being a front end developer, but it is to say that knowing that's something that you want to dive into, user interfaces, the ways that people interact with the web, with a program, that seemed to be something more passionate with you. So I'd love to be able to understand that from the perspective of the project that you worked on, because as we pointed out, this is a photo album that you've been able to develop with Cloudinary technology, with Svelte,
Mm-hmm.
with lots of CSS. Of course, that's very front end in itself. But tell me about, why did you decide to develop this project?
Well, first of all, maybe I give you a bit background about like me and Svelte.
Yes, of
Well,
course.
when I first started working out of school, when I first started working, I'm always very, I started with like an Angular project, and then I got into like a React project, and I was very amazed, or like very look up to the people who are working behind like building these frameworks, and I always feel like it's unattainable, like how smart they have to be able to build this framework where we just get to use it like every day and makes our life so easy to build UIs. So I always have this thought that like who are they and how can I become them? We know that they are open source, and then we go online, go on GitHub, and we can find the source code. But every time I just open that website, I'm like, man, this is not for me. It's so complex. I don't even know where to start. So many files, so many code. I don't even know like when I write this line in my code, how does it even translate, or how many functions, how many things that it goes through to build this to render anything on my screen. So I'm always wanted to be like one day to become one of them. So that was something that was in my mind when I first started out like as a front end engineer. And as the year goes by, I was like, little by little, I'm like starting with like some basic libraries like Redux, and could be things that we use like React Router. And as like slowly and by slowly, I'm like looking into the source code and trying to figure out like how that does that works. And I like little by little it appears to me that I slowly understand how it works. And it was until like I would say during a pandemic where I got really bored, and in 2019, and then I found this framework called Svelte, where we just I think Svelte 3 was just announced, and I was like, I think maybe I gain enough knowledge to maybe able to understand how it works. And I always very fascinated by how frameworks like Svelte works. So I decided to give it a try. I tried all the like an example the playground, and I like this looks magical, and I want to know how it works. But as I like just browse through, I see that there are certain modules that says like to do this needs help and stuff like that. This needs refactor. So I decided to just try and error. Like when you at least like the name of the module says like this is for this logic. So I decided to just try and make some changes and see how it turns out, and try to narrow down where it goes. And from there on, I was quite lucky that I managed to fix one of the to dos, and I submitted a pull request on GitHub, and I just went to sleep. And the most amazing thing that happened the next day was that it got merged, and I was like, oh, now I got motivated. I want to do more about that, and so therefore, sorry for the long-winded story, and therefore I got into um like contributing to like Svelte, the source code itself, right? So that's how I got into like this is like my personal story like with Svelte. But all along, I've at my work, I'm actually been using React.
Okay.
Okay, so there's this like split between me where out of work I contributed to Svelte, and I'm part of the core team, and sometimes I made some like write some contents about Svelte. But at work, I'm mainly day to day I'm using React. For the past 1 or 2 years, actually, lately I got more busy with work, so I don't involve that much with Svelte. And I think a few months ago, I was thinking, I feel like a lot has changed in Svelte, and I just want to know how it actually works. And so I decided to find some sort of projects or challenges that I can use to use Svelte to build because, at work, I don't really use Svelte. So I want to just find some examples, and I've been to a few conferences and I've seen Cloudinary booths all the time, that I know that they are one of the big image CDN provider, and I think like photo album, it's one of the most common UX where you can, there's a lot of apps where you can view a list of images, right? So that's quite a common pattern. And I decided that maybe it's time to use this API where I don't have to think about the backend, but I can build some UI that taps on it. So I decided to build this project about like Cloudinary and a photo album. Yeah, so that's the whole story behind why I decided to build this project, just to get in touch with Svelte, figure out like what are the new features, especially for Svelte kits. What are like how does it work? What are different routings? Which we probably can talk about more. Like how do you create different pages in Svelte kit? How do you navigate between Svelte kits? And how do you use API, create endpoints in Svelte kits and stuff like that? So yeah, I had quite a great fun with using Cloudinary and Svelte kit, especially like Cloudinary provides. I don't have to think about the whole data APIs and the images and stuff like that are all come directly from Cloudinary. I don't have to think about those, and I can focus on experimenting and thinking about UI with Svelte kit. At the same time, I'm just able to build up this like amazing like photo album app with it.
Incredible. And thank you for sharing all of that. It is helpful because there's many times where you have developers, as you're somebody that's actively using a certain framework in your day-to-day job. But it is also to say that there are things that kind of tickle your brain. You have things that you want to try, things that you want to experiment with. And the fact that Svelte has this ability to be able to contribute directly to its source code and allow for you to experiment and learn as a developer more about it and ways to actually contribute back to it. It's a wonderful thing that it's provided for developers like yourself and being part of that. And so I love that journey that you're able to walk us through about how you were able to come and learn about Svelte, but also how you were able to weave in Cloudinary technology and ultimately use this as a way to further your knowledge about the framework itself. So this is wonderful, Li Hau. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the projects that we talk about are solving for a certain need. Someone is building something because something was missing. They had to solve for a need. But with you, it almost seems like we're talking about a love story. You missed Svelte and you said, just as a passion project, I want to go back and learn about what's new, put something together, build something with Cloudinary. It wasn't necessarily to solve a need as much as to learn, and you probably learned a lot as you went. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of the things you learned, some of the things you might not have known about Svelte before, might not have known about Cloudinary before. So let's get into it. Let's start talking about your project and see what it looks like.
Okay, cool. So first of all, what you see is the list of images as like the photo album app. You can scroll and see more images. So I built like something like a infinite scrolling. And as you click on one of the image, see what happens is that it will show up the image with some transitions that's built in with Svelte. And you can see the image itself as well as some of the description and tags, where basically these are all coming from Cloudinary. And there are some buttons here that you can apply filters to. This is just me playing with Cloudinary API, where with any images that you upload, you can easily create filters or effects on the image. Like you can make it like with tints, like blur, and then you can stack multiple like filters or effects on the images. And that can be done very easily without knowing any filters, effects, how to write those things in JavaScript, but all these are provided by Cloudinary. So one thing you notice that when I open up my image, actually the URL has changed to like images / something, like the image ID. And I can actually navigate left and right to visit a different image, and the URL has changed accordingly to the image itself. So this is very useful, where actually the image they're looking at, it has a URL that you can visit to. So this correlates to this image. And so particular why I find it useful is, let me just copy this URL, and I'm staying at this page where I can open up like image like this on and off without jumping out of context of the page, where you can still feel the page is behind us. It's just we can navigate here. But the URL has changed, which means the URL actually represents this page, and I can actually copy this URL and then share it with someone to open up like the image page itself, right? So what that means is that actually here, if I try, you can see that I can still open up the same image, this behavior, whatever you just saw. It's progressively enhanced behavior that you can have on your website. And if you are in a slower network, or maybe for some reason your JavaScript haven't been loaded, right? So let's say like I disable JavaScript here. If I visit this place and maybe just say like my JavaScript is still loading, I can actually click on any of the image, and like the UX and the interaction itself is still there without changing. URL is still like the same thing, while you can have this without JavaScript and with like progressive enhancement like built into Svelte kits.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I spent quite some time to figure out this whole thing and like figure out this UX. And like the one last part of the photo album that I made is that you can upload. So this whole upload widget is by Cloudinary. It's just a few lines, and then you can easily upload files via, you can upload from your computer, can copy a link, or you can even like get images from other third-party services like Unsplash, Google Image, Google Drive, Dropbox, and all these things. And yeah, that's how I got most of the images that you see on the screen. That basically I uploaded directly from here.
Incredible. And then look at all the great things that you're doing with Cloudinary as well as Svelte in this situation. You've got, as you pointed out, you're doing all of these filters, the grayscale, the blurring, the sort of just Cloudinary transformations that you're applying, which is wonderful. You have a really nice UI. It's super clean, super easy to use. I'm also noticing when you go ahead and click into any of the images that you have here, that you have these tags that are associated with them. And I wanted to ask you about that.
So Cloudinary actually has image recognition models that when you upload a new image, you can automatically generate descriptions like this one, and also generate the tags like this. So these are all automatically tagged and generated.
Incredible. And it looked like that was us, but I wanted to be sure. But yeah, this is wonderful that you've incorporated this into the upload process. So you have AI tagging that's associated, AI image captioning that's associated with this as well. And then of course, with every image, you have it where you can apply the tint, the blur, the grayscale, or the pixelate transformations associated with it too. So this is huge. This is you're actually using quite a bit of Cloudinary here. So this is pretty impressive. So
yeah.
I ask you, so what's behind the hood? How is this all working?
So besides Cloudinary, I didn't use any backend services. So most of them are done like entirely purely in SvelteKit. So this is the SvelteKit project. And basically we have some API endpoints. So this is where we keep all our routes, our endpoints. And here you can see that some of those images endpoints where we can upload effects. These are all using Cloudinary SDK, where we add effects. As I upload images or fetch images, it will, it's just like an endpoint that wraps around Cloudinary API that runs in the server. So all this it's done by using the Cloudinary SDK with like SvelteKit.
Great. And can we see some of the functionality, like how you're applying the transformations and chaining them together based on an on-click event, and how the auto captioning is happening and all of that fun Cloudinary functionality?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so first of all, it starts with the upload, right? Where you have an upload button, right? So this is the upload button. So for the upload widget, so this comes directly from the Svelte Cloudinary library, right? So this gives us a Cloudinary upload widget, and I can design whatever button that I want to look like. But this Svelte component that was coming from Svelte Cloudinary provides like a way for me to pass in open, where when I click on button, I can trigger the open function and let Cloudinary, the Svelte Cloudinary handle everything for me. And then what happens is that by default, it will just upload image directly. I don't have to do anything. But if you want to do some processing when you upload something, there's where you need to configure the features or models that you want to apply for your upload, right? So for that, you can actually write it in your code and then deploy with your code. But what that means is that every time you want to make new changes, you will have to make changes in your code. So I find that interesting, where Cloudinary has made it so much easier for you to use this, where you can actually create upload presets. Basically, you can configure all different sorts of the
Transformations or features to apply that you want to apply upon upload.
Yes, exactly. And then you can create a preset of that, and then you can use the preset name in your code and refer to it directly. As you can see here, this is the name of the presets. So this is the name that I copied and have it in my upload presets. So here, basically, once you have this, you can actually keep adding and modifying and tuning your different presets. Especially, it's useful when you play with it, especially like things like I think there are certain settings where you can tune like how sensitive or what's the confidence level. For example, like this one, you can tune this value up and down so that you want it to only use like the objects that is like highly confident, that like it's like 90% confidence. Then you can tune it up, and you can do all this without having to go and change your code, because you use the same upload presets. You can modify upload presets any way you want it to. Yeah, so I find this very useful. And I think the next thing that I to make this whole thing works, right, it tripped me for quite a bit, is that for certain models you actually need to sign the API. If you notice here, where you come out, that actually some of the different presets, it's like in sign mode and unsigned mode. So for certain models, you have to sign the APIs, where when you upload the image, you need to do some encryption to make sure that no one malicious or someone else use your account to upload image. And I think like some of this categorization, especially AI models, it's not cheap. It you need to pay for it per image that you upload. To sign it, you need some secrets, and actually those secrets have to be stored in server, right, in your server, not send it to a web client and use it, right? So apparently you can actually specify some endpoints that you can develop, and you create an endpoint in your application. So I create this API image signature, which is this endpoint over here. That it's a post endpoint that I do sign my requests. So that's something that I managed to figure out, that actually I need to create an endpoint to do that. Once I figured it out, signing it's not too complex, because the whole request itself, you can pass it to Cloudinary SDK, where it has like ways for you to sign a request to generate a signature. So I use this to return a signature back to my upload widget, right? So this one specifies the endpoint, and this will returns the signature in the JSON response, and basically everything again being taken care by the upload widget.
Wow, this is a really clever way to provide security on the front end, and you're passing in your secret through that endpoint. That's really great. I haven't seen this before, so I hope anyone watching might see this and become inspired themselves as well. Okay, let's keep talking through it.
So I can come in and edit the presets, and you can see that there's quite a comprehensive settings that you can do with upload presets. There's a lot of things that you can do here, and the one that we're particularly interested in is the media analysis and AI, where you can use different models, like from Amazon Recognition or Google Auto, or I think they have a lot of add-ons that you can use. And then you can also like choose languages, and you can choose like based on after the model has determined like what is the objects that has been detected, as well as the confidence. You can choose the threshold for confidence, and you can also do OCR, which is interesting. Like if you actually want to build something that maybe not a photo album app, but something that you want people to, maybe something as simple as maybe you have like a payment app, and you want people to easily scan their credit card and then
Right.
allow them to pre-fill like their credit card details, for example. You can actually use Cloudinary with the OCR feature, and object character recognition. I think that is one way to do it, and you don't have to, build your model or like find some other third party, and you can use this this is one of the presets, right? You can use a lot of different presets for Cloudinary to store other things in the same application where you just need one service provider for that.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and interesting. There's tons of applications for OCR, but what I feel that you're showing here is that you can layer all of these different use cases in one upload preset. So you're doing all the tagging, you're doing all the image captioning, you're capturing the way that you want this to be signed, unsigned. All of those different choices are all made because of what you're doing with your upload preset here. So this is good. And frankly, this is the way we train users how to do this. So this makes me also very happy to see that you're applying best practices of everything you're doing, Li Hau.
Cool, thank you. I just realized that there's one thing that also took me a while to figure it out, like the detection. So this is so I was like trying to find out how do I do the auto captioning, and I just realized that actually I used like the detection model called captioning, and it frankly it's a free text, right? So you can pass in anything, and it doesn't work when there's no such model, right? So then when you upload something, you trip yourself. How do I even find out that it's called captioning? I think it was somewhere in content analysis add-on or something.
It would probably be in the content analysis area.
So from here,
yep, there you go.
I realized that the detection says captioning, and so I see that it's a string. So I just pass it in and try it out, and
it worked.
Surprise, it works.
Yeah. That's incredible. And that's a nice little tip, because what I love is that you were able to review the documentation, be able to test this and see if it would apply for your work. And sure enough, it did. So I think this is wonderful that you were able to make all of these points, and it shows you're a skilled developer, Li Hau. So this is good.
Thank you.
Okay, you have an upload preset, you've got AI tagging associated, you got the image captioning, you're defining all of that within the space, and then you're declaring it within your code. It seems to be as simple as that. Is there any like key other points that we've missed?
I guess the styling and how it all looks on the page.
Yeah.
We haven't really gone into Tailwind or any of that.
So for the photo album itself, I decided to try Tailwind because I mean at work usually you have like component libraries and then you just put different components together to build UI, right? So I don't really have that experience with Tailwind. And I heard a lot about Tailwind as well. So it's like hitting multiple birds in one stone, where I can try SvelteKit, as well as trying Tailwind and Cloudinary. So for Tailwind, I'm still learning to get into the groove of knowing like what is the class name that I need. You know, like a lot of times, like I know, like, okay, looking at it, I know like I need some paddings, I need some margins, I need some grids, but trying to translate that to different Tailwind class names, I think it takes some time for me. I think one thing it's interesting is that as I try to resize my screen, I have more grids and less grids, right? And that can be done easily. Back in those days, before Tailwind, we will have to figure out like what's the threshold for that as considered a small screen or bigger screen or wide screen. And now with Tailwind, I don't have to think about it. It's basically called like medium, small, or large, with a modifier, and I can easily use this like MD modifier for most of my styles, and I don't have to think about it. So most of the things I do it with Tailwind, and it looks clean because I'm not particularly stylistic, so I just need to make sure that it feels like a grid and it just looks okay. That's all. I didn't really put a lot of effort or attention to like, you know, add a lot of like fancy CSS styles onto the images itself. So that's why it feels like it's more like minimalistic style.
And one thing I noticed when you're walking through the code there is that there are a few Cloudinary transformations that are associated with this. I see you're using CLimit that's associated with this to ensure that the image doesn't grow past width 400 in this example. It also looks like you're applying FAuto and QAuto inside of there. What was your decision on some of those transformations?
This comes by default from Svelte Cloudinary.
Oh, look at that. The magic of the SDK.
Wow.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I noticed that too, just as Sam noticed in the URLs that you were applying other Cloudinary automatic features, and I noticed that we didn't see that in the upload preset or in your code. So that comes with the community built library, the Svelte library that we're talking about. Amazing. Okay, and you have the source set coming with all of those. Great, cool. Okay, so it wasn't a decision to apply it; it just came with it, and you're just experiencing the benefits of your photos being optimized for you.
what essentially is doing is it's ensuring that the crop size itself, the 400 by 400, doesn't exceed that in certain grid styles that you have there. It also, the F auto is saying deploy this at the best format for this user's browser and their device. So if we were to inspect some of these, I would imagine it'd be serving these as WebPs or maybe AVIFs, regardless of what they were uploaded as. And then similarly, the Q auto is essentially compression. So it's going to provide a little bit of compression, but to the point where it's going to reduce the overall bandwidth, but it also is going to ensure that it's not going to go and degrade the image and make it visually pixelated and whatnot because of the compression that's taking place. So there's a lot of Cloudinary magic that's being applied on those deployments of these images here. This image itself inside of your dev tools, it'd be interesting to see what it's coming through as. Yeah, so you can see right there, content type WebP, and that's the magic of F-Auto that's being applied to there. So you could have uploaded as a JPEG, a PNG, but it's saying because you're on Chrome, then it's going to say serve it as something that's more optimal for this user browser. And because Chrome supports WebP, it automatically converted it to be such. But let's say you're using like IE6, which doesn't support WebP, then it would probably retain it as a JPEG or a PNG in that scenario.
But if we were on Safari, it would probably serve an AVIF.
Yeah, exactly. It can serve many different options. So yes.
So you're saying that this is all done automatically by Cloudinary based on the current requests?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does that even work? Like, does it like use user agent from your request headers? Is that something that like
a lot of it has to do with the content delivery networks that we have there. So it's essentially, yeah, it's picking up details, but it's caching it on the CDN layer. So that way it can say, based on this user that's coming through, we're going to service with this. But yes, you're absolutely right. User agents applied to it. There's a lot of details that are associated. But the nice thing about an F-Auto is that it has fallback to it as well. So if it can't detect certain details about the user, it will still always serve the image. This may not be at the most optimal one that could be if it was able to retain all the details about the user and what device, what browser it happened to be using.
Oh, okay, cool. So it's mainly request headers like user agents.
There's a lot to it. Like let's just say, like we get a whole episode about like how does F-Auto. But yes, essentially think of it as best essential extension or file.
How do you keep up even like how many browsers out there? Like that must be crazy. Like if we want to build this ourselves, like we have to figure out like all the different types of browsers. Especially every year. Like I think Chrome releases browsers every 6 weeks. Right, then you will have to keep up to it and know like what are new versions and it supports and stuff like that. Right.
Exactly, and is also to say that sometimes they stop supporting certain things. So, like as an example, Safari in time is going to stop supporting JP2 or JPEG 2000. So, if you were serving everything as that, well, at a certain point, it's not going to work. But it is also to say that because of what Cloudinary provides to you with F-Auto, it's kind of like you can set it and forget it. So as a developer, you can say, I know without a question or a doubt that I will be able to serve the images at the most optimal format and at the most optimal quality compression, regardless of what browser they are or not using in the future, in the past. It makes sure it's all very able to be done. So you've essentially safeguarded yourself to make sure you're constantly optimizing without having to learn all the nuances of what Google and Apple and Mozilla and all the providers of browsers are doing or not doing.
Interesting. So you and you actually just need the same URL and you can use it in any browsers and actually gets different types of formats.
Yes. Yeah, you absolutely could. So like if you like, we don't have time for that, but it's to say like if you want to on your own time, and I recommend this also to our guests, is you throw it into Safari, throw it into Edge, and maybe even like throttle your bandwidth and play with it that way to see what happens. And there's lots of different options you can have to see how F-Auto and Q-Auto work together. But me and Jen call it like our secret sauce or our secret like magic that's behind the scenes that makes a lot of the web just work the way it does.
So like as a front-end developer, we actually don't have to keep having to deploy our new code whenever there's new browsers coming up, because like the URL, even like I don't use Cloudinary API to get images. I can like store it somewhere, or like I just hard code it somewhere. And even with that, if I just have the URL with fauto and qauto, actually that URL itself will make sure that the code that I have always be optimized for whatever user that is opening, right?
As long as it's being delivered by Cloudinary, yes, absolutely. Because that like the fauto qauto thing, that's proprietary to us. It's because we're actively using our relationship with the content delivery networks to make sure those transformations are applied.
Okay, cool.
I'm glad that we're learning. This is great.
That's great. And one more thing to add is with qauto, the compression is imperceptible to the human eye. So you wouldn't even really notice that there's any compression that's been happening. And you can apply fauto qauto to video as well. So that's really huge. It makes a big impact when there's a big website with tons of video and you apply qauto to that, fauto as well, makes a huge difference. So anyway, we've been on a great tangent that Sam and I love, I'm sure. But getting back to Li Hau's project and what he built and wrapping up, something I'd like to hear, Li Hau, is when you were building all this, as we know now, there was even a learning moment that we all had together right now. But was there anything that you learned, maybe any roadblocks, anything that you're applying to your work at Shopee, or anything that's made an impact on you as a developer when you were building this project?
I think the documentation is very comprehensive to the point where it's just too many things that I'm not even like, I'm trying to figure out where am I, what should I use, and like especially because of this, where it actually is calling the upload API directly, right? I came here by Google searching like Cloudinary models for content analysis, and it brings me here where it is calling the APIs and the response. And because I'm using just the SDK for my use case, I don't really like care about like what are all the models have been returning me, because I just need to show the image, and then for all the data for the models that they have, they actually will just tag it automatically. So I don't really care about this, but there's a lot of things to go through to figure out, like in the end, like figure out, oh, actually I can specify like this detection, like Cloudinary fashion. This is actually what I need to specify in the detection model, right? And like it wasn't clear to me like whether I can have multiple detection models, like whether this is comma separated or like new line, or I don't know, like, or is it I can only specify one thing. So it wasn't very clear for me. So there's some trial and error over here. But I have to say the documentation is really comprehensive. Like it includes a lot of things over here, right?
Yeah,
And
all in there. You just have to go digging for it. But luckily, you can search for exactly what you need and hopefully find what you need eventually.
That's the wonderful thing about this episode, is that because you've done the work, other people can easily watch this and be like, oh, this is exactly how I apply image captioning. This is exactly how I apply all of these things to upload presets. And so I think it's like, yeah, you did some work, Li Hau, but it's also to say,
thank you.
You've made the road a little bit smoother for other developers that want to take a similar path. So this is wonderful work. And I think the wonderful thing also is that, we've talked quite a bit in this episode, but there's tons that we can unpackage with this overall project. I mean, you have all sorts of things like the infinite scrolling and how you did that. So it is to say, like, I recommend to our viewers, take the time to go through this project, because there's a lot here in terms of just good UI best practices that you've applied, Li Hau. There's also great Cloudinary aspects to it too, but it's just take the time to go through it. There's a lot of ways to work with imagery and show it in this beautiful photo gallery style that you have gone and done.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely a very interesting learning journey for me. I think just now I mentioned about difficulties when I face with Cloudinary, and there's also like a lot of challenges as I play around this. I just realized that to make the infinite scrolling works nicely, where every paginated image response that you get over here, it has to be nice. I think I did some extra care. Now I suddenly think about it, whether the screen is 4 elements or 3 elements or 2 elements, it's always nicely where you don't have some odd images popping out at the end of the list, where it's always just 4 in a row that you can fetch everything. And even like the navigation I was saying just now, like I think making this works where you change the URL, but not going to a new page where you still have the context of both page. Although like the back of it feels like it's blurred. I mean, this is just like a filter, but you can actually have the previous page and the next page that you are navigating happening on the same page on SvelteKit. I think that's a very interesting thing that I have not able to figure out like how to actually make that work in React. But or with Next.js, I think definitely there's a lot of more side projects that I have to go to try to explore those things. But having that to be able to work in SvelteKit, and it's not too hard. I mean, I managed to build this within the span of like a video, right? So it's definitely eye-opening to me.
Yeah. And I know you talked about this project at the City JS conference in London, right? Is this a project that you featured there?
So in CityJS, I went to have a workshop. It's
Mhm.
it's a Svelte workshop, and it's my first workshop. So I went there to have a workshop to teach about Svelte kits, and I use this as an example to tell them like what you can actually build with Svelte kits.
Mhm.
And in the workshop, it's my first workshop, so there's a lot of things that I need to improve on and learn from there. Like especially like in terms of time management and crowd management and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Well, awesome. Awesome. This was such a great conversation. And I know I learned so much. And thank you so much
Mm-hmm.
for your time, Li Hau, and for coming on the show. And we hope to see more of what you've built in the future. And we'll keep an eye on all that you're developing for sure.
Thank you for having me. Like I'm very happy to be able to come on the show and talk about it. It's nice to get to know new people, and yeah, I guess you guys have great crowds over here. So yeah, hi.
Yes. Thanks so much, Li Hau. Talk to you soon.
So, Jen, big takeaway. What are you feeling right now?
Yeah, so much. Well, first of all, AI is a huge topic right now, and Li Hau is using a lot of the AI features that are available with Cloudinary. So I love to see that. And also, as we learned throughout the episode, there were other features, F Auto, Q Auto being applied that were, making things better, making life easier. Um, Another thing is he was building this project to really learn himself, but really what I think will come out of this is other people learning from what he built. And that's a theme that we love to see on DevJams and that we like to feature. And I know that I learned a lot. How about you, Sam?
I agree. And I think the biggest thing for me that definitely struck me was that, he wanted to learn Svelte. So he actively started contributing to the code and he just got right in there. And looking at his GitHub, user account, I can see that he's contributed a lot, but he's only like one of like 700 people in the world that are actively contributing code to Svelte. So it definitely shows that if you're interested in a technology, getting in there and trying it out, but also because of just the power of open source, the power of a development community, it is to say it is something that allows for our users to be able to contribute directly to it. So if you're saying, I would like to see this to be done differently, or I'd like to try this in a different way, or I have a different approach to this, it seems like the fact that Li Hau did those things and then expanded those into teaching at conferences and developing his own projects, and now being able to weave in lots of different types of technologies into it, like Cloudinary. It's been a really cool journey that I was excited that Li Hau walked us through. And I think this is probably one of the first of many times we'll probably be seeing him pop up in the development circles because there's a lot of cool momentum I'm seeing from the efforts he's putting into this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And one more thing I was thinking is Li Hau is a self-proclaimed front-end developer. So some of the ways that I noticed he was talking about what he built was from a true front-end perspective. Like when we were talking about the pop-out, where I remember the first time he said it, he said the word feel. He said where you feel like you're still on the original page. And that's just something that, we have tons of different developers come on DevJams and we talk to different developers in our line of work, Sam. And that was such an indicator to me that developers don't think of the way that they build things in the same way. It depends on the mindset they're coming from. And I kind of loved hearing from Li Hau as a front-end developer and the way that he thought of certain things. And that was just something I wanted to point out as well.
I like it. And good point. And way to be right on there with all the words that were said in this episode. Speaking of which, if you are interested in future episodes or past episodes of DevJams, feel free to check those out at any place that you like to watch or listen to podcasts. That includes Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, but it also includes our own Cloudinary Academy, which you can easily find at training.cloudinary.com. And in there, we have all of the podcasts that we have produced on top of many self-paced learning resources, courses, workshops, and other educational resources available to you. So feel free to check that out. So that way you can continue to learn and grow as a developer, of course, using Cloudinary along the way for all of your image management and delivery needs, as well as video management and delivery needs too. Also, Li Hau and really almost like 2 million developers are actively involved in Cloudinary's community. So feel free to check that out, as well as to have conversations with each other, ask questions to each other, try to figure out how people did what they did with their projects. All of that is available at community.cloudinary.com, as well as its associated Discord server. And then lastly, but most importantly, feel free to check out everything that Li Hau has built inside of his GitHub user account. As you can see, he has hundreds of repositories that are available, including the one that was profiled today, Cloudinary Photo Album. Jen, any final thoughts before I let our audience go about their day?
No, I don't think so. That was just a great conversation, and I loved having Li Hau on.
Excellent. Well, on behalf of everybody at Cloudinary, thank you for being a part of this DevJams episode, and we can't wait to see what you, our development community, does to create innovative, inspiring, interesting projects that use Cloudinary for image and video management. Take care, and we'll see you at the next one.